On a July summer weekday, 6-year-old Adam Walsh's mom took him to Sears at the mall to buy a brass lamp, advertised on sale in Good Housekeeping magazine. Entering the store, Adam wanted to play at the display of video games. It was 1981. Other kids were there, so Mrs. Walsh let him stay. She said she'd be back in minutes. The lamp wasn't in stock, and she never saw her son again. On an early evening 2 weeks later, 125 miles north by the edge of the Florida Turnpike near Groves, that produced the state's famous oranges and grapefruits, 2 men who'd just launched their boat into a drainage canal saw floating on the surface what at first looked like a doll. Then to their horror they realized it was a child's severed head. The next morning, the local medical examiner identified the child as Adam Walsh. What kind of person would grab a small child, behead him, and leave the head by the road? It was a hard question for police to solve, especially while its community was terrified that any other child could be next. The town was Hollywood, Florida, which relied on winter tourism and could not afford that kind of reputation. Adam's parents, Reve and John Walsh, became crusaders for the cause of missing children. A network television movie 2 years later documented their tragedy. The day the movie premiered on TV, a man named Ottis Toole, a low IQ drifter from across the state, in Florida prison for a murder resulting from an arson of a boarding house, first told a detective he took and killed little Adam. Case over, declared Hollywood police late on a Friday night. But Toole and his better-known partner, Henry Lee Lucas, were then in a sort of rivalry to confess to the most murders around North America. Police lost count after hundreds, or who knows, even more. When the transcripts of Hollywood police's interviews with Toole were released, long after it was plain he knew absolutely nothing about Adam's murder. Detectives kept prompting Toole, piece by piece with information and pictures, apparently hoping it would help remind him of something real they hadn't yet told him. It didn't work. Police still spent months trying to connect him with the murder, but couldn't. A year later they let it out that they'd dropped Toole as a suspect. Then years later, under a new chief of police, who admitted he had no new information, Hollywood police closed the case and blamed Toole for killing Adam. But there was a much more compelling suspect, none other than the Milwaukee cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer. A Miami police report proved that Dahmer was working 20 minutes, by vehicle, from Hollywood the month Adam disappeared. That was uncovered by a true crime author named Arthur J. Harris, who has written a 2-book series, The Unsolved Murder of Adam Walsh. When Hollywood police closed the Walsh case, which made all the files public record, Harris read them and found 7 separate police witnesses who identified Dahmer as who they'd seen at the mall that day. 6 said they saw him with or near Adam. The Miami police report said Dahmer had worked at a Miami Beach sub shop. Harris found it had a blue van for pizza deliveries. 2 of the police witnesses at the mall said they saw a man get away with Adam in a blue van. For the first month of the case, police had asked the public to tell them anytime they saw any blue van. Police tracked down hundreds of blue vans. When Dahmer was arrested in Milwaukee in 1991, he had 11 severed heads in his apartment. None were as young as Adam's age, but he had an arrest history of masturbating in a public park in front of children as young as 12. But the best evidence may be a police composite drawing of a suspect wanted for an attempted kidnapping of a 10-year-old at another South Florida Sears 2 weeks before Adam's disappearance. But even more shocking is that Harris's search of the public records discovered problems with the positive identification of the found child as Adam Walsh. In the files there were many irregularities that should never happen. Neither the medical examiner's office nor police had an autopsy report, and the chief pathologist, who did the autopsy, admitted he never wrote one. The child was identified as Adam by a match between its remains and Adam's dental records of only a single dental filling, and that in a lower molar, where children commonly get cavities. But the dental records are also missing from all the files, although they were handled by 2 medical examiners' offices. And although the ID was made strictly by teeth, no one ever consulted a forensic dentist. Without those documents and with scant ID evidence, the state wouldn't have been able to prove in court that the murder victim was Adam Walsh. John Walsh has since become a host of crime-fighting TV shows, including America's Most Wanted. In his book about the case, he wrote they chose Adam's baseball picture as his missing photo because it had been taken only the week before he disappeared. Harris found that more probably it had been taken a month before. But Adam's best friend says he last saw him a week or 2 before the disappearance, and he still had neither top front tooth. Again, when the child's head was found, Adam had been missing exactly 2 weeks. The medical examiner who did the autopsy told the news media that the found child had been dead for as long as that. After death, teeth don't keep growing. If the found child is Adam Walsh, then in the last week or 2 Adam was still around, his tooth grew in from not yet erupted to in almost all the way. That wasn't likely, said all the forensic and pediatric dentists, and Harris showed it too. Which means it's very possible, if not overwhelmingly likely, that a small child found beheaded was never correctly identified, and its family was never notified. And then, could Adam still be alive? The answer is probably yes.